This is the Skoda Enyaq Coupe RS IV. Very long name, so in a nutshell, it's a souped-up version of the standard Enyaq here in a coupe-ish body style. Other than the Mamba green paint, is there any reason to buy an RS? And is the coupe a significant compromise compared to the regular Enyaq SUV? Watch this to find out.
The Skoda Enyaq IV, Skoda plugins and EVs carry the IV designation as an innovative vehicle, is an SUV-coupe thing based on the MEB platform. This is a platform designed specifically for electric vehicles in the Volkswagen Group. Volkswagen's ID models, including the ID Buzz, the Cupra Born and Audi's smaller e-trons are also built on the same platform. In terms of dimensions, the Enyaq is about the size of the Hyundai Ioniq 5, something between the Mazda CX-5 or the Volkswagen ID.4 and the Skoda Kodiaq or the Mitsubishi Outlander. The coupe version has a slightly smaller boot than the SUV and is minimally larger than the Volkswagen ID.5, which I reviewed a few months ago. And since I reviewed the most powerful GTX version, I can now compare it with the sporty-ish variant of the Enyaq, the RS.
I'll start with the positives. The Enyaq, regardless of the powertrain variant, is very pleasant to drive. Back in 2021, I said that the Enyaq is the best electric Volkswagen, and I stand by this statement even today. I would even risk saying it's the only sensible EV in the group, as it's the most spacious inside, not counting the ID Buzz, which has aerodynamic properties of a minivan, obviously, because that's what it is. If you want to know why I consider the ID Buzz a missed opportunity, watch my review of this very interesting design exercise. Meanwhile, take a good look at the Enyaq in this configuration and the ID Buzz and tell me in the comments which one you'd prefer, this or the ID Buzz. The prices are unfortunately quite similar.
Going back to the driving pleasure in the Enyaq, the car has all the driver assistance systems currently available, even if, as in many other Skoda models, the lane keeping assist is, in my opinion, not sensitive enough, and the car often demands that I take over the driving even though I'm keeping my hands on the wheel. The Enyaq is well soundproofed, accelerates quite well, has comfortable suspension, a 360 camera helps maneuvering, and there's a head-up display with augmented reality, which, in my opinion, doesn't add much to the regular HUD functionality. The whole car is a good appliance to get you from A to B. Very nice.
I guess at this point I should address the fact that I am talking about a 65,000 euro car with 299 horsepower, all-wheel drive and a promised 0 to 100 km per hour time of 6.5 seconds. And this is supposed to be a nice appliance? Well, other than the Porsche Taycan and the Audi e-tron GT, the Volkswagen Group's EVs are not very engaging to drive, and the promised performance is available only in a very specific situation.
I first experienced this in the Cupra Born, which I also reviewed in the winter. When I measured the acceleration, it turned out that I was more than a second short of the result proudly advertised in the specification and the brochures. That's because in fine print it also said that the temperature of the traction battery must be between 23 and 50 degrees and the battery charge level must exceed 80%. With that said, Volkswagen does not recommend charging the battery above 80% every day. I reviewed the ID.5 GTX in the summer and recorded the acceleration runs at sunrise, so most likely the battery was within the recommended temperature range and the charge level was sufficient, but I'm driving the Enyaq RS in the winter and I also fell short of the claimed result by more than half a second.
So, with the exception of two very expensive sports cars, the Volkswagen Group EVs are not performance-oriented. They also don't handle great, as the GTX was understeery, and during my time with the Enyaq RS, the roads were mostly slippery, so I preferred not to check how far I would go into the woods before the car stopped.
Anyway, I didn't need to go down into the woods, my diagonal approach test was enough. I admit it was slippery, but that doesn't stop cars with better all-wheel drive systems. While in the summer the GTX coped without a problem, on snow the RS didn't even try to stay in the direction I intended to go. I got the same results in normal mode, and in slippery surface mode.
Let's get back on tarmac. Daily driving an EV needs easy access to a charging point, obviously. This can be a home or an office outlet or a charging point next to the store that you frequent. If you spend a few hours somewhere, a Type 2 connector outputting 11 kilowatts is enough. This Enyaq has a traction battery with net capacity of 77 kilowatt hours, so from an 11 kilowatt socket it will charge to full in about 7 to 8 hours. But since the manufacturer does not recommend charging to full, 80% is enough. With a promised range of over 500 kilometers, 80% is still 400 kilometers. Do you drive around town more than this during the week? Probably not. And if you want to drive somewhere further, then you charge to full, and 500 kilometers is just shy of Berlin to Warsaw in one tank, or should I say, on a single charge. Now, if the Germans invaded us in electric tanks, history would have taken a funny turn. Anyway, just to be on the safe side, you find a fast charger along your route and stop for a number one and a bite to eat. 15 minutes later, you have regained at least 100 kilometers range. As long as it works, then you're golden. But does it work like that?
Let's assume that when deciding to buy an EV, you do have somewhere convenient to charge it. Maybe your employer provides charging stations, maybe there are charging points at the mall or at the gym, or you have solar panels on your roof and you can charge for free. Add a two-way charger and you can power your home from the car during peak hours and recharge it off-peak. You're almost making money with your overpriced car. It's bloke logic. All this assuming you actually drive very little. I used less than 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers in the GTX during the summer, so it's easy to calculate that I had range of around 400 kilometers in and around the city. This is already 20% less than the 500 plus kilometers promised by the manufacturer.
But as it gets colder, the range drops. When I was reviewing the regular Enyaq, it was a few degrees Celsius, and now with the Enyaq Coupe RS, it's still around 0 degrees. In both cases, I was consuming more than 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. In city traffic and extra-urban, 23.3 right now. I did a 234 kilometers road trip, more than half of which was on dual carriageway with cruise control set at 120 kilometers per hour. That's the speed limit. I arrived with just 100 kilometers range remaining, and the battery capacity dropped from 100 to 26%. And this was around zero, around freezing, not a proper winter with minus 10, minus 15 degrees or something. Now, taking into account that you don't charge to full on daily basis, and even during longer journeys, it makes sense to unplug around 80% due to the charging curve, you're left with about 250 kilometers of range, and that's assuming you're not driving uphill or against headwind. Okay, no problem. After all, the Enyaq RS takes up to 135 kilowatts, and from 10 to 80% it charges in 36 minutes. In parts of Europe where Ionity charging stations are in abundance, this is fine. Should you want to drive your EV across Poland, the chargers are rare and slow, and I'm sure there are some other parts of Europe where this also may be a problem. So you got 300 horses, which you can't use, all-wheel drive, which doesn't do very well in slightly more challenging conditions, and who cares, you can tow up to 1400 kilograms when it'll decimate the already over-promised range.
But other than that, compared to other Volkswagen Group EVs and other EVs in general, the Enyaq is a very sensible car. It has acceptable dimensions for the city, plenty of space for passengers and for luggage. Even in the coupe body style, I can put my gear case on its side and close the hatch. This is really something I rarely see in the largest estates and SUVs. There's enough legroom in the back and the headroom is okay. I mean, there's a huge boot behind you and the falling roofline looks cool. There are pockets in the doors, small cup holders in the armrest, 3-zone climate control, heated seats, and USB ports. Just keep in mind that because of the batteries, you're sitting higher than you'd think looking at the car from the outside.
And this is what I have a problem with here, especially when getting in behind the wheel. I would like to get into this car like into an SUV, but I sit down like in a sedan, and as a result my thigh gets caught on the steering wheel even though it's flat bottom. Now Anna doesn't have a problem with this because she's shorter, but it bothers me every time I get in.
Other than that, the driving position is comfortable, there's a good range of adjustment for the seats and the steering wheel. I am 175 centimeters tall, Anna is 160 centimeters tall, and we both find a good position behind the wheel. In this car, both seats have electric adjustment with memory settings. That means the highest equipment version. And what has changed in about 18 months since my first encounter with the Enyaq? As part of some software update, the energy consumption data finally appeared on the driver screen. Previously, you had to check it on the infotainment display, which meant leaving the navigation screen, for example. Other than that, the Enyaq's cockpit is fine, I've seen worse. The cup holders limit access to the wireless charger, and taller drinks will still obstruct the physical buttons. That's if they fit, because my water bottle, for example, barely fits. The armrest adjusts only up and down. Prices for the Skoda Enyaq start at €42,100 for the SUV with a 58 kWh net battery capacity, rear-wheel drive of course. Larger batteries and more power costs almost €5,000 more, $2,000 more if you want all-wheel drive. The cheapest Enyaq Coupe IV starts at €54,400 and the RS starts just above €63,000. With options, this Mamba Green Enyaq Coupe RS IV costs €66,400. Now, sorry about the sound, it's not like I can't hear this dryer noise coming out of the car, but in order to drive my point across and have this thing lit up here, I had to press the brake, put a selfie stick between the seat and the brake pedal so the car remains on, and oh boy. Anyway, let's get on with the show. So here's the conclusion. Now, this paint is available only on the RS trim, and you want the Max pack with double X to get all the driving aids that make the car so relaxing to drive. And it's not about the power of the motors, but it's about the power to make people's day, especially women actually, who at the sight of this car in this color beamed and even approached to chat with me. So, if you want to please yourself or other ladies who cross your path, the Enyaq RS is for you. Otherwise, the regular Enyaq IV is considerably cheaper and just as good on daily basis. And how do you like the Skoda Enyaq Coupe RS IV, and what do you think about the illuminated panel that does not mask the radiator because there isn't any radiator underneath? Anyway, let me know in the comment section below. If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.